Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Bob. Thanks for stopping by. We got a message for you today, and today we're talking about a point in time in history where the United States Supreme Court, for the first time ever, didn't follow precedent, and it came up with a ruling that has changed America. And you can use the government's own statistics, and from 1962, when Engel v. Vitale took school prayer out of schools, and our social statistics have gone diametrically negative. And this was just a simple court case that asked for a simple generic prayer on four. It's recounted in this book, America to Pray, Not to Pray, by David Barton. Everybody should get this book. Everybody should know about this case. And the prayer just asks for a blessing from God, a generic God, upon us, upon our parents, upon the teachers, and upon our country. And from 1962, using government's own statistics, it's amazing how it just goes straight up on the negatives. I get it. It's right here on the back. You can see like violent crime from our country. They had to create statistics. Divorce rates with the parents went straight up. This is before 62. This is after. Teen pregnancies after 62, straight up. And the SAT scores, straight down. So, and that's what happens when you take God out of, ask for God's blessing. And this court was comprised of 8 jurists who were not, who were non-jurists. There was one jurist on the court, and he voted against taking school prayer out of school. And then, of course, 2 years later, they took the Bible out of school. And the 60s were rather conservative, believe it or not. They say time, but we started to get a lot of radical elements in the country. And Kennedy was shot in 63, and there's a whole conspiracy about how that was a coup d'etat. And Lyndon Johnson, there's a great book, there's a lot of books, but Lyndon Kennedy's secretary was named Evelyn Lincoln, and she basically says, without saying it, LBJ had him set up. And the CIA had motives, the FBI had motives. They were mad at Kennedy for not going through with the mafia. Of course, had motives. So things started happening, but let me finish that thought. The CIA was mad that Kennedy didn't follow through on the Bay of Pigs and provide air cover. And then, they blamed the lone nut, Lee Harvey Oswald, and then Ruby, who killed him. And there's a great book called Me and Lee by Judith Vary Baker, and that has a lot of information that, here it is right here. Judy Vary Baker, she was a CIA cancer researcher who became friendly. Lee Harvey Oswald was her protector, basically. And so they ended up working together. When she came to New Orleans, she was a cancer researcher, had the highest IQ in the state of Florida, and she wanted to cure cancer, and she won all these awards through high school for her science projects of curing cancer, and as well as she got magnesium out of the ocean. So she became pretty famous. CIA heard of her, and they recruited her, unbeknownst to her, to not cure cancer, but to create cancer, a biological weapon to kill Castro, because Castro was an imminent threat to Florida, and she was brought into New Orleans, and that's where Tulane University and the Ochsner Clinic was there, and Mary Sherman, who was through Tulane and Chicago, she came. She was a great cancer researcher. They all experimented on monkeys, and the monkey vaccine actually had cancer in it. It was called SV40, and for many years, they were actually given. They were trying to cure polio with it, and they found the cure for polio, but they discovered it caused cancer. But and so many hundreds of thousands of people were inoculated by this, but they figured they could cure cancer, and so this book talks about it. Talks a lot about Sparky. Sparky is Ruby. Ruby was involved with New Orleans and Lee Harvey Oswald, although he claims he never met him, after the fact. But she knew Judith knew him as Sparky. I haven't picked this book up in a little while. But anyway, this is a great book. I recommend it. My point here today is we wanted to talk about how from 1962 all this craziness happened, and we were at the students were asking God for protection and prayer and blessing, just a blessing. And since then, it's just been chaos. In 1973 we had Roe v. Wade, which was pushed through Congress by NARAL, the pro-abortion group, and the founder of NARAL, one of the last surviving founder of NARAL, was Dr. Bernard Nathanson. Dr. Bernard Nathanson admits that they lied to Congress to create a lucrative business or industry for them and their friends, and get rich off of the most vulnerable amongst us, which are young women find themselves with child and the babies themselves, and he said they deliberately suppressed what they knew was true, that life starts at conception, so that they could create a this is like the bad side of capitalism, if I've ever heard it. The liberals are out there protecting Roe v. Wade, but at the same time they hate the evils of capitalism. I can't think of a worse example of the evils of capitalism than the motive behind Roe v. Wade. The real motive, according to the last surviving founder of NARAL, NARAL, the pro-abortion group, was to create an industry and get rich of the blood of babies. And certainly the fathers of the babies are vulnerable too. A lot of them, obviously, they're not around, but some of them don't want the babies to be killed either. And they're in a bad spot too. A lot of them are in bad spots. So there's vulnerability all there, and our government decided to pass Roe v. Wade 5-4 in 1973, based upon lies. And Dr. Bernard Nathanson said it's the greatest mistake in American history, and he also said that he killed 75,000 babies himself. So if it's the greatest mistake in American history, by definition, it's worse than slavery, right? Slavery, and we know slavery was legal at one time, right? And so for us to come along and I don't know why the pro-lifers don't, because this video is available on YouTube. It's 1.5 minutes. I've never heard a pro-lifer in the last 10 years since I've known about this video discuss and promote this video. I don't know why. It makes me wonder. But, you have the smoking gun here, and you're just ignoring it. You got to put this out there. You got to put it on auto loop. You got to talk it up. And if the other side, a lot of people on the other side who are supporting pro-choice are deceived, okay, by the leaders of pro-choice. And so if they got better information, maybe they'd make a better decision. I just heard Madonna today talking about, she had 11 abortions, according to her brother, by the time of 1991. And Madonna came out today and started talking about how abortion is a woman's right to choose, and that Jesus would approve of a woman's right to choose. Well, she needs more information. Obviously, she's already killed 11 of her own children, at least, probably more, since 1991. So it's another 20, 30 years she could have committed, killing these babies of her own heritage. And the pro-choice, that whole thing about choice here is deceiving too, because these people who are so gung-ho on choice, they're not supporting choice in other areas for that same woman. Does she have the right to arm herself like she wants to? No. Does she have the right to educate that child the way she wants to? No. So choice is a lie, and it's used in just one area. So that's my message today. Is I just wanted to point out that when we turned our back on God, we were a Christian nation for a long time, and as I said, the 4th of July is coming up. I'm trying to bring these messages out that God and the 4th of July and the founding of our country were an indissoluble link. And when we break that link, we have chaos and trouble. And that's what's happened since the 60s. We've had a lot of chaos and trouble. And we're slouching towards Gomorrah, we're slouching towards Sodom. We're slouching towards Armageddon because of this, because God isn't fair. I blame the church too. In 54, the church was bought off financially by the government so that they will not, they bowed to the political pressure and agreed to not talk about politics anymore in exchange for tax-free status. So for like 30% on the dollar, they've stopped becoming light, and the pastors stopped talking up important issues, and then you end up with abortion on demand, and all these babies dying, and you end up having a Congress that doesn't fear God, and that's you end up with state governments that don't fear God, and the encroachment is continuing, and pretty soon they're going to ban the Bible, which is what God predicts in the Bible anyway. So I'm just trying to trace these things together and connect the dots with some things we may not be aware of, but things I've discovered. And like I said last time, George Washington in his farewell address said, and this is of course edited, that in vain would one call themselves a patriot if they labored to, if they took from a government the two pillars from which it stands, religion and morality. So, religion and morality, John Adams said we need a self-regulating people, because the government cannot properly function if it's continually have to regulate people. So that's what we got now. We have a government that's trying to regulate people. We get all these programs for heroin addicts. It's endless. All these prisons, big, huge industry, the prison industry. I can go on down the line, right? It's pretty obvious. So that's the the pharmaceutical industry is another issue. It's truly is endless. John Jay, the first Chief Justice of the United States, said it's our duty and privilege to select Christians as leaders. So that's who we are. That's where we came from. The separation of church and state. I think the first court case that redefined it and basically tied it back to the founding fathers and the Constitution, which it's not in the Constitution, was in 1947. So for 150 years, that was, not what was going on, this whole separation of church and state. That was a letter from Thomas Jefferson as president to the Danbury Baptists, who were worried about one denomination. Like in England, one denomination taking over, and then as part of the government, the official religion, and then if you weren't if you weren't a Baptist or you weren't a Catholic, you would be an enemy of the state, and they wanted to hear it from Thomas Jefferson. But Thomas Jefferson, as president, of course, he says there's a wall of separation between, church and state, but that's not in the Bill of Rights. It's not in the Constitution. But what he was talking about, obviously, was there isn't one denomination that's favored but we are a Christian nation, as the 1892 Supreme Court decision noted, citing, over 80 sources, and they said they could have cited more, but they didn't. But I want to get back to Thomas Jefferson. As president, he had the Marine Corps band go to Congress for Sunday worship all the time. And so, it was all about Jesus and Christianity, as John Quincy Adams says, 61 years after the Declaration of Independence, he was president, he was a congressman, and in Newburyport, he made a famous statement that said, there's an indissoluble link between the general principles of Christianity and the birth of our nation, and the fact that the birth of our nation is actually a tool for the promotion of the gospel. And I talked about that in my last video. And I got all this stuff from David Barton, America to Pray and Not to Pray, and America's Godly Heritage. Plus I read a lot on Wikipedia. And again, this book is Me and Lee by Judy Very Baker. This is one of the greatest books I've read. It gives you a lot of behind the scenes. She knew Lee Harvey Oswald. She had a relationship with Lee Harvey Oswald. And the other thing about her is she's a speed reader, but she has incredible recall. And so she is an incredible witness for history because she can remember detailed conversations with all these CIA operatives. David Ferry, who was portrayed by, what's his name? The guy from Goodfellas. In JFK, he was in Home Alone. What's his name? But anyway, it's gonna drive me crazy. You know who I'm talking about. So anyway, that's my message for today. I hope you receive it. It's about 20 minutes, and try to put together a few things today. But I wanted to get this court case in your memory. This is where it all went wrong. 1962 on. Simple school prayer. We struck it down. It was the first case in U.S. Supreme Court history that didn't use a single precedent. And there was on the court there was only one jurist, legal professional. The rest are political hacks. And that's what's led us to where we are today. 64, the Bible was taken out. And then 73, the Roe v. Wade. And the lies have manifested themselves. People being fooled. We're being deceived. The whole world's under the sway of the evil one. And the evil one's blinded the mind of the unbeliever. And, like I just said, the founding of the country, according to John Adams, was a tool to promote the gospel. You believe that? How about that, sports fan? Think of that when you see those fireworks on 4th of July. All right? And what is this gospel? The gospel is believe and be saved, you and your household. And if you do, you cross over from death to life, and you'll live forever. And because God paid the price for you, He died for you. All right? We're sinners. We're all fallen because of the sin of one man. It's really not our fault, but we're on the hook because of Adam's fall. And we need the second Adam, Jesus. And He just went to the cross and did it for us, as predicted ahead of time. And He says to the thief on the cross, just believe and you'll be with me. He said, today you'll be with me in paradise because the thief on the cross believed. And He said, remember me when you come into your kingdom. So Jesus said, I tell you the truth, today you'll be with me in paradise. So that's how easy it is. Don't let anybody else tell you it's hard. Don't let a church tell you it's hard. It's free grace. Come and drink, the living waters. Come to Jesus. Come to me. Come to me, all you who are heavy burden. Take my yoke upon you. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. That's what God. That's what we need. We need a spiritual relationship. We need. Man doesn't live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. But we need a spiritual life. We don't want just flesh. Okay, you need to be. When you're born with the Spirit, that means you've been born again. And these words, just that word Jesus, is enough to save you. Okay, the word's going forth without void, and it's returning without void, I should say, and doing God's purpose. God's ways are not our ways, so you just gotta think about get educated, if you will, before you make this decision, and just believe. All right, this information's been suppressed, just like Dr. Bernard Davis had suppressed the fact that conception begins at life. They knew it, but they suppressed it. Well, the Bible's being suppressed, all right? And Jesus says, the work of God is this, believe in the one I have sent, all right? So that's it, believe in the one God has sent, and get saved today. And you'll live forever. You live on the streets of gold. You'll have a mansion, a room in the Father's house. You're going to be tight with Jesus. You're going to have a glorified body. How cool is that? What more can you want from a God? He's rescued us from, our doom. We're all fallen because of the sin of one man. But we can be justified. The Bible talks about being justified in Romans 3. Okay? And by faith. And you're saved by grace, God's graciousness, by faith. And it's a gift of God, so that no one will boast, because us, we'll boast. So that's the message today. I'm going to just thank you for stopping by Elephants Aplante. The elephant in the room today simply is, we have forgotten God, and that's due to what Satan has done. He's trying to trick us. He's trying to blind us. He's trying to suppress God. And he's the God of this age. All right? So find God today. Read Romans 3. John 3. Read Ephesians 2. This will take you 10 minutes, 5 minutes. You know, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Romans 3, right? Romans 6, the gift of God is eternal life, but the wages of sin is death. But the gift of God is eternal life. In Romans 10, everyone who calls on Jesus will be saved. So thanks again. I hope you get saved, and we can all live forever. And spread that word. Spread the word. All right. Say goodbye today, and we'll catch you next time as we come up with a couple more videos leading up to the 4th of July. Thanks again. Bye-bye.